Welcome back to Penistone once again, where we finally pick up on a wander along the wonderfully historic former Woodhead Railway route. Quite obviously, with it having been 7 months since I last stood there talking to you, we need a bit of a catch-up, don't we? So far, we've done Deepcar, where it all began, Worthley, Thurlstone, complete with tunnel, Rumtickle, or Romtickle, Oxspring, and finally up here to Penistone. And its once glorious 7-platform station, sadly now reduced to 2. So we're just going to have a little merry walk along Penistone platform and round to the other side. The platforms are still so much easier to make out in the winter, don't you think? Well, except when there's snow. While this side of the station closed in 1970, it was enlightening to know that you could still get up to this platform and watch the odd train go past until well into the early 80s. Notably, coal trains coming from Manchester towards Sheffield and Wharf, and occasional passenger diversions as well. While speaking of station access, I've also got this to show you just across on the other side of the path. This is a former entrance to a footbridge off Eastfield Avenue, which connected the streets directly to the station and also helped a few people dodge a ticket barrier as well, probably. While we're standing up here looking down at the station, we're also staring across at something else that was hugely integral to the entire Woodhead infrastructure. This white wonder right behind me is the former controls office for the entire Woodhead electrified railway network. Seems a travesty, doesn't it, to have lost less than 30 years, but at least it's been repurposed as an office rather than razed to the ground, like a lot of the rest of the network around it. One last sight of Earth from afar. Well, pulling away from Penistone at last, and into the sunlit distant west of the Woodhead line. We whirl over the street once again. And just like that, we encounter more abandoned infrastructural goodies. Electrification, maybe a signal base there, and bits of old fencing. Another little bit over here as well. This part of the track bed looks really ambient when you compare it to what it looked like 35 years ago. I've been treading on ballast, mud, bits of infrastructure outside your own back garden, if you look closely enough. I have to report an absolutely disgusting piece of railway heritage vandalism that took place along here a few years ago. On the left, a beautiful engine shed once stood, unceremoniously demolished in 2017. You also got a pair of former coal drops on the left. You can still see the buffers there now. The drops themselves are shortly to be made into a new set of business units. We seem to have picked up a few extra sheep as we go along our way. Now this bridge in front of me is pretty interesting. It doesn't carry a street or a road over it, but in fact a cemetery. We have Thurlstone Cemetery up there on my right, and going over that bridge is the connecting path taking it into the War Graves complex. Smart concrete deck up there, and the lovely little array of bicycles at the bottom as well. We can still see Penistone tucking itself away behind the hills. As we take off over our next bridge. Another one they've brought up to metal standards. One of these many ubiquitous Trans-Pennine Trail benches here. Installed when the cycleway was officially opened in the late 90s. Got a very handsome looking bridge in front of us here. This one is crossed over not by a cemetery, but by a road this time. That being Hornthwaite Hill Road, which we're about to cross under. Pretty sizable headroom, probably about 25 feet there. Bit of ironwork up there that might relate to the electrification. Now, I've got one super treat lined up for you, lying right behind this next gate. As we come up on Bullhouse Lane in Thurlstone and its former level crossing, you'll find a bit of railway has actually survived. We're looking at the line going straight towards Sheffield here. This bit in the centre is actually the end of the concrete surround, and that's a rail, so we're not in between the two tracks. Let's have a look back at her one more time. Beautiful. Aside from the mud. We might have to just stop by and admire this for a second. This is one of an elegant selection of wood carvings that seem to have taken place all over the Trans-Pennine Trail in the last 20 years. As we make our way along the hill opposite Millhouse Green. The problem around these parts is it's so difficult to get a signal. Dave, is that you? You're breaking up a tremendous amount of times this morning, old chap. Are you out on that stupid disused railway line again? seems like what might be a former coal bunker behind the trees there hiding. While around the other side, concrete of all shapes and sizes. Something else over here as well. It's mean and it's green, but it can't quite be seen. Now as we ascend upon Shore Hall Lane and its admirable bungalow alongside, I'm hoping you like that last level crossing with the rail still in it, because we now have second helpings straight in front. And what they say about second helpings, they come twice as sweet, because not only one, but two. If you can just see a faint groove in the very centre, that is where the inner rail of the track coming from Manchester towards Sheffield would have been. So we've actually got both sides of the Sheffield bound track and most of one part of the Manchester bound one. And even that's not the only bit of the crossing left, because a little stroll down Shore Hall Lane reveals part of the original level crossing gate. Still standing upright and along the line of the road when I last saw it, but the post still stands tall and not quite yet unhinged. Boom boom. As modern as it stands looking now, and much in contrast to that old crossing gate down there, this is in fact the original Shore Hall crossing keeper's cottage. It has been recently extended, which is the lighter coloured part you can see on the end. So we leave Shore Hall behind and move on round the corner towards Bullhouse. Nice fence. Now, a bit more electrification over here. And if we just amble across a track bed, we'll find we've got both sides of the full gantry. First time that's been seen since before Penistone. You can argue that this is actually an electrified branch line. Now this next bridge in front is a bridge and a half. And you might not be blamed for taking that too literally, because it is one double track and one single track. The two arches were actually built at different times. You can see from here probably that the single one has a lower head clearance, and as a likely consequence of that, the line running through it was not actually electrified. So it was a passing loop used in the steam days, and probably later only by diesels. I think we deserve a peek up the other side as well. Perhaps more fun seen further back. That plush bridge beneath Parking House Lane behind us. We press on, and we can already see it coming in sight now. Bullhouse Bridge. You will probably notice a little snag, however, as we're closing on this one. The bridge we're bouncing towards right now, built to replace the original structure that was demolished in the late 1990s, has been closed since about 2021 due to structural instability, i.e. there was a risk of a person, possibly even a horse, or even a pedal bike, falling through the bottom. But as we edge our way closer to this so-called bridge, there's an even darker story than that to bring up about this location. In July 1884, a passenger train from Manchester to London suffered an axle failure approaching the bridge, causing it to derail and crash down the embankment. Having uncoupled from behind the engine, the train's carriages tumbled onto the fields and the road down below. Most of the vehicles were damaged beyond recognition, with only the bogie left intact. 24 people died in the accident altogether, with 33 also seriously injured, including one of the guards. Anyway, sorry to end on such a tragic note, but sadly, time is up for today's adventure. Especially as there's a gap in the railway in front, and I'd rather not have any accidents myself. So, don't come off the rails yourself, subscribe, because there's plenty more Woodhead yet to go. Cheerio.
Disgusting. 3 hours late he said he would be, when he finally rang. Well, if he thinks I'm keeping this lovely Lancashire hot pot that long in the oven, he's jolly well got another thing coming. Oh, isn't that lovely?